Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the main event in the red corner, hailing from the heart of Music City, USA. We've got a man who's not just a voice on the radio, but a titan in the wrestling world. With this podcast, Wrestling with Heart, he's here to tag team your curiosity and drop kick your skepticism. So get ready for a no holds barred showdown. Give it up for Stanley Karr.
Oh man. Oh. Thanks guys so much.
Hi Stanley.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Welcome to the show. You know, I practiced that intro just for you, buddy.
Oh man, I appreciate that. That was great. That was really awesome. Thank you for having me.
Nice. All right, Stanley, welcome to the show. We appreciate having you. We're going to hear all about wrestling. But before we get started, I got to ask the question I ask all my guests. Can you tell our audience something, anything that they can't go on Google right now and find out about you?
All right. So, I'm a big ice cream lover.
Ooh.
I love ice cream.
Ice cream.
So I like vanilla, chocolate, so many great flavors. Cookie dough, Oreo. But I love sorbet. That's like my favorite.
Oh really?
Kind of ice cream.
What flavor?
Yeah.
What flavor is your favorite?
Raspberry.
I like mango.
I've never tried it.
Did you see his eyes light up when he dropped that? Raspberry.
He said it quick too. I wasn't even thinking about it.
Very cool.
What's your favorite ice cream, Rob?
Ooh, I like orange sherbet, but I love chocolate and peanut butter in my ice cream.
What about you, Gianni?
Nice.
What's sherbet, first of all? And then two, I don't know what it is.
You know what sorbet is, but you don't know what sherbet is. That's hilarious.
It's weird because I used to get the two of them confused, but then once I learned what sorbet was, I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool.
Okay.
Because nobody eats sherbet. Tell us you're old without telling us you're old, Robbie.
You got me back. But no, my favorite. I'm simple. I like vanilla. I like vanilla bean, Breyers.
You're like my wife. My wife's just boring.
That's good. That's good.
That's not boring.
I'm more of a cookie dough type guy. That's my thing. Cookie dough. All right. So Stanley, I gotta ask. You got this amazing podcast, Wrestling with Heart. What sparked your love for wrestling? So when I was a kid, I remember watching WWE with Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Macho Man, Randy Savage, the Junkyard Dog, all the greats.
Guerrero.
Oh yeah.
Rey Mysterio.
And they were great characters, you know. So you're a bit younger, of course, but what was that moment for you? What kind of drew you to wrestling?
So I've always been a fan. So just to show you how old I am, like my childhood was like what you were talking about, Gianni, that ruthless that like tail end of the Attitude Era, like the Ruthless Aggression era was like my core childhood. So like Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Kurt Angle, Undertaker,
remember that era.
John Cena, John Cena back when he wore the jerseys and the ball caps and all that stuff, and oh man, just great memories. Then you got Triple H and Shawn Michaels.
I'll admit that was around the era that I stopped watching.
No,
I mean,
fun.
don't get me.
I actually went to the match.
Really?
Yeah, I went to a match. But what were you saying, Stanley?
I've been to several shows. Like I started watching. Interestingly enough, I was 5 when I started watching. When I was 9 was when I really started actually paying attention to like storylines and characters and things like that. And I went to my first show that year. I believe it was 2004 was my first show that I ever went to go see. And last year in Dallas, I went to my first WrestleMania.
Whoa!
And it was.
Oh wow!
I've never been.
it was massive. Like, they got people from all over the world come to this thing.
Yes.
I'm talking not just the United States, but from Canada, from Australia, from Europe, Japan, all over. They were packed. And crazy thing is it's no longer just a one-night event. It's now a two-night event. So I only went to night one, and I got to see Stone Cold Steve Austin make his return to the ring.
After 316, baby. 316.
Yes. I love Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Almost like 20 years later, he was wrestling a guy named Kevin Owens was his opponent. It was huge, man. It was crazy. And
I assume Kevin Owens lost, of course.
Yes,
he had to be the loser in the storyline.
he had to be, but like, I went to go to SummerSlam last year in Nashville, my hometown, and I actually have tickets to go to WrestleMania next year in Philadelphia, so I'm really stoked about that. That's going to be huge.
Wow.
Very nice.
You're diehard, man. I love this.
Yeah. Your podcast is slightly different. Your podcast just doesn't focus on wrestlers and wrestling. Can you tell our audience pretty much what your podcast is about?
Yeah. So initially this kind of started as like a class project. I was taking a class where I work at a community college, and I worked there as an operations assistant for the radio station. And it was a podcasting class. So all this momentum, I was just stoked about going to WrestleMania and SummerSlam. And I thought, maybe this is a good time to do a podcast around wrestling. But if I'm going to do a podcast on wrestling, I want to do something that's different, something that's hasn't already been done. There's like thousands of wrestling podcasts out there, and a lot of really good ones, but nothing really that centered around helping others, community service, charity. Like, you hear about it all the time with guys like John Cena doing the Make-A-Wish stuff. And just really wanted to do something that was spreading positivity around and giving people a different side of the business that they're not really used to seeing. And there's been podcasts, like separate podcast episodes devoted to this subject, but not really an entire series. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with my show. And I'm coming up on a year since I started, and I'm just trying to, thank you. And I'm just trying to build my brand, and hopefully see this thing take off.
See where it goes. Absolutely. Do you happen to have, on your podcast, do you happen to have a story, that you can share that was heartwarming, or anything that was inspiring from your podcast in the wrestling world that maybe you've encountered during your journey podcasting?
Yeah, so I had a girl on a couple of months ago, and I actually just posted this episode recently. This was a girl who just kind of got into the business through an agent. I guess she was working to become an actress, and so she came from a family that was, I guess, was very poor, and just not really coming from a family of wealth. And so she was trying to, she fell into wrestling and was trained by, I don't know if you remember who Rikishi was, big guy, Samoan.
Rikishi. Yeah. I know what he looks like too.
Yeah. And
his
a guy
outfits
named
were crazy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yep. And a guy named Funaki, and so she trained under both of them for a while, along with a friend that she later met through training. And so she got into the business. She right as she started training, or halfway through her training, I believe she broke one of her feet during training, and so she was homeless for a while. She didn't have the money to pay for surgery. So eventually she started getting the surgery. She got the surgery, and 6 years later She's out of the wheelchair and she's looking to make her way back in the ring. So it's just a really touching story that I got to hear. So it was really cool. I highly suggest you check that interview out.
Which episode is that?
Absolutely.
I believe it's 41. You're welcome. It's 41. It's with a woman named Black Dahlia.
Black Dahlia. Okay.
Black Dahlia.
Right.
Okay.
Nice.
Yes.
I want to take this back to Neo's introduction because you were impressed with the mic skills. So I want to know which pro wrestler, past and present, do you think has the most impressive mic skills? And can you impersonate their promo style?
Yo, you want to impersonate? Let's do it.
Challenge.
Sure, you 7-second challenge over here.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. You ain't seen a podcast like Wrestling with Heart, dude. I'm talking about a podcast that specializes in charity work, community service, helping others, dude. It's like there's not like any kind of podcast on the planet, dude. Brother, I tell you, Wrestling with Heart, don't check it out. Oh, yeah. And all the Animaniacs. Oh, yeah, they're going wild, brother. And I only have one thing to say here. What you gonna do with the thousands of the Stanley Maniacs, brother? Put the body slamming on you, brother. Oh, yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
This is amazing.
That was awesome.
Bravo.
That was awesome,
Thank you.
dude.
Oh,
That was great.
Thank
You just made
You're
Robbie's
the
day.
best impersonator on our show so far.
Oh my
Thank you.
God.
Besides Rob.
Someone's watched some footage.
But no, I actually had a question. When it comes to, like, as a passionate wrestling fan, what do you think it is about wrestling that resonates so strongly with its fans? Because you've been to the shows, you know how crazy the fans get. So what do you think beyond, the scripted entertainment that really gets to people's heart and get people going about wrestling?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of things. It's just entertainment. There's really nothing like it. I mean, it's like going to the movies. You go see a movie, you're hooked right away. You're just drawn in. Doesn't matter if it's real or not. You're just at the edge of your seat.
You're in it.
And to see it kind of take place live on, in front of thousands of people on television, it's just a whole another. Yeah, and the music and the fireworks. It's just there's just a lot to it. It really is a lot to it.
So let me ask you.
Well,
I mean,
thank you.
You mentioned you saw that. So Sherry Blaine Savory says amazing impersonation. But,
yeah, he did.
But you mentioned that if it's real or not. So one of the things that turned me off as I was growing up to wrestling was the fact that it's fake, right? It's well, when I say fake, I mean
Scripted.
That's a better word. Thank you. So I don't want to say the word fake because it's not really fake. These are amazing athletes who do amazing work.
Yes.
Because
they do.
The injuries are real. I mean, so again, not the word fake, but scripted. So when I realized it was scripted, right, it kind of turned me off to it. So what do you say to people who have been turned off, like myself, to wrestling and the fact that it's scripted?
Okay, first of all, good question, by the way. First of all, I don't look at wrestling per se as a sport. It has athletic competition involved, but I look at wrestling the same as I would with any other movie or television show. If you're into a show, you're going to want to see the characters. You're going to want to see the storylines, what happens next. If they have a cliffhanger that leaves you wondering what's going to happen to this character, tune in next week and find out. That's kind of the way I've looked at it. I've always kind of thought about it's hard to explain because it's just there's really not any kind of form like this anywhere else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of equate it to sports in a sense, but it's more than just sport. It's entertainment.
Yeah, because there is a
it's almost
a sport of wrestling, right? There's a sport
Yeah,
of
it's
wrestling.
exactly. And I think
that's why it's easily compared.
Yeah, and so
Hmm.
the idea is if you look at pro wrestling like a television show, I don't think you can really have any connotations of fake in there because it's a show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
Good point.
That's fair.
Good point.
Bob, did you have another question?
Well, I'm just curious now, along the lines of philanthropy, in your opinion, which wrestler is the most philanthropic out there? Who's giving more to the community?
That's a great question.
Well, I definitely said his name earlier, John Cena. He's probably granted like thousands upon thousands of wishes to young kids and people that are going through, a tough time in their lives. So I would say John Cena. There's another guy who's done a lot of good work in the business. He's not wrestling currently, but his name's Titus O'Neil, and he's done like a bunch of ambassador work for the company, for the WWE, and he's just a good-natured dude from all accounts from what I've seen of him.
That's nice.
Nice.
Now,
who are your top three?
But Johnny.
Sorry, who are your top 3 favorite wrestlers?
Okay. Well, I'd probably say the Rock.
Okay.
I'd probably say Undertaker. And I'd probably say Kurt Angle.
All right, well let's go around the horn. What is everybody else's top 3?
Mine is Rey Mysterio.
Go ahead,
he never talked.
Rey Mysterio?
Rey Mysterio. Yeah. And there was another one, I don't want to bring up his story because it's kind of sad, but I think he actually like killed his family, but what's his name? You might know, Stanley.
Chris Benoit? Chris Benoit?
Yeah, thank you. Chris Benoit. Yeah. I liked him. And then probably Eddie Guerrero as well.
Oh man.
That's why I said this.
I remember the day that he passed away, and I was just shocked.
Torn.
And I remember crying that whole week because I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
That was probably that was probably like the first celebrity death that made me cry. Definitely.
Yeah.
So
I'll say we recently lost another talented performer. He went by the name of Bray Wyatt. His name was Wyndham Rotunda. He passed away at 36.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was so young and just had a lot of potential.
Wow.
He had a great character, and a lot of people kind of compared his work to The Undertaker or Mick Foley with Mankind, and this was very creative, and he definitely will be missed as well.
I think I said my favorite ones at the top of the show, which were Hulk Hogan. I mean, Randy Macho Man Savage was my all-time favorite because I thought he was so cool.
Snap into a Slim Jim.
And then Hulk Hogan, and then Andre the Giant. I loved Andre the Giant just because he was just that.
I forgot about him.
Comp. So, what about you, Rob?
I'm with Stan on my number 1 pick, Dwayne The Rock Hudson. Absolutely.
Johnson,
Brett the Hitman.
Johnson.
Brett the Hitman Hart.
Okay.
Number 2,
Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. Strong wrestling.
Yeah.
That's where Dwayne's dad was a Calgary wrestler. So, I mean, I kind of lump him into there.
Yeah.
And then from that early generation, loved Yokozuna. Like that was just a mountain.
Yeah.
That man was intimidating.
That's a big dude.
Yeah.
Oh, he was he was a really big dude. It's like, who's gonna give Andre a run for his money? That dude. That dude.
All right, we don't
Nobody named any females.
Oh wow.
Do you have any of your own?
I forget her name, but she was so famous. I'm definitely just like a cliche, liking all of the famous wrestlers. But I forget her name. It was either Tori or it was I forget her name. She was blonde, and she was really famous around the time Eddie Guerrero. Trish.
Was it Trish Stratus?
Stratus.
Trish
Yes.
Stratus.
I remember her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like.
Yeah. No, I barely remember any of the names of the females, unfortunately.
She was wrestling like not too long ago too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, she was wrestling this woman named Becky Lynch. They had a cage match, steel cage match. She still got it.
Nice.
She's great. She still got it.
And we only have a few more minutes, but before we go, you're not just about wrestling. You got this radio show, The Piano Men. It's all about piano players across genres.
Yes.
Tell us about that. How do you blend those two worlds?
I know. Very cool.
Well, I in addition to wrestling, I'm a music guy. I love music. It's been, probably just as much as my interest as it is with wrestling. I see the guitars in the background. But I started that show about 7 years ago now. We just had our anniversary show on Monday of this week. So I've been doing that for 7 years. I've been interviewing several people in the music business. I'm talking like guys like Jim Brickman and John Tesh, two guys who have who have their own radio shows that have just released albums after albums after albums that have performed with so many people. I've interviewed a guy named David. Yeah, John Tesh. Yep. David Sanchez of. Yep. There's a guy named David Sanchez who played with Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, actually one of the original members of the E Street Band. I interviewed him a while back. There was a guy named Michael Omardian who worked with Steely Dan and Christopher Cross. I interviewed him a while ago, and just several other people. And I'm just trying to see if I can grow that show as well.
Awesome.
Nice, Stanley.
Wow.
Very
Awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say we love having you on the Pods Network.
Yes.
But I also want to give you a minute to kind of tell people a little bit about where they can find you, and tell them any last words that you have.
Yeah, so if you want to check out Wrestling with Heart, you can find us on Facebook. Just search Wrestling with Heart with Stanley Karr. We're at about 400 likes right now. I'd love to get up to 500. I'm on Instagram. I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm on Threads. And I'm on YouTube. I just reached over 100 likes. I'd like to get up to 500 so we can start monetizing, making some of that money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Piano Men, you can find me on Facebook at Piano Men with Stanley Karr. Also, my website, stancar-radio.com. You can find out more of my information there. And my podcast is on all the platforms. So find Wrestling with Heart on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts.
Or Pods Network, PODZ. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Stanley, for joining us. We've definitely enjoyed having you. All right. And we'll talk to you. We'll bring you back again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
Awesome. I'll talk to you soon.
Stanley.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you.